Fantasy team.
Well, as Chuck mentioned, we're doing things a little different today. We're going to move the Mariner segment a little bit. So we're going to shift right into our Storm right now. And we'll go right into, of course, they're in the off season. So we're still waiting to hear about what the Storm are doing in the off season. But some of our Storm players are overseas. So we'll go over our Storm overseas here. Ezzy Magbegor recently had 18 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals in a EuroLeague game against DVTK term on November 19th. Steph Talbot had 18 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal in a WNBL game against Townsville Fire on November 11th. And Epiphanny Prince had 16 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals in a Turkish Super League game against Kankaya on November 7th. So really good numbers from our Storm players overseas here.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting looking at this list because I know we're still waiting for Stewie, Gabby, and Jontel just from tracking on there. But nice to see this stuff. I know Steph's down in Australia. With Piff still over there. Again, still interesting to see that Bree was still playing. But
yeah,
just kind of keep track of this while our players are overseas. And, because this is big for, not only for them to get paid more, outside of the WNBA season, but, obviously for like Ezzy getting more of that development.
Yeah.
That hot start to the season. And then it's tough with Tina Charles coming in, trying to manage that rotation. I liked the addition of Tina Charles. I know that when we had our off season, I wanted to bring her in. But I think I'd like to just stick Ezzy at the 5 and leave her alone throughout the full season.
Okay.
Because
so then you don't see Tina back in Seattle?
I didn't see that in general. Because with our Storm exit interviews, she just didn't show up.
Yeah, I do remember that.
So I wonder, and I know that the goal for her was to win the title, and she was looking for that. She joined Connecticut, and then they just bombed it this year. Came here with us, and it was tough. I mean, Vegas. Well, I think I told you after that game, after the game they were eliminated. Vegas is probably going to win it all. It's
they looked too good.
Oh, not Connecticut. I'm sorry. Tina was with Phoenix. Yeah, I was like, no.
And that was a salty departure.
Yeah, there's a lot to that. But it's Vegas is loaded. The Storm got a little bit fortunate in 2020 when they played them in the bubble because they weren't at full strength at that time. You could look at the scores, and Seattle blew them out, and maybe they were the team of destiny, and they could have handled them at full strength. But Vegas, the last few years, you think of Vegas, this is a powerhouse. Asia Wilson is Asia Wilson. Kelsey Plum, the fact that they could at times bring Kelsey Plum off the bench is ridiculous. Jackie Young, I get nightmares still.
The one that gives me nightmares still is goodness, how can I not remember her name right now?
Maybe
Point guard. Maybe
shifted. But yeah, that Vegas team is just stacked up and down with talent. And then you look at their coach and Becky Hammond, and it's like, this is just ridiculous. What are you going to do? So this is, they're probably primed to defend their title. Upcoming year, So
that's why it's even more interesting to see what moves we make.
Yeah, and that kind of shifts us over to draft-wise because it's interesting, to see this. Who we're projected here looks fine. I was looking at stats last night. But it's like, how much can you expect a rookie to come in, take over where Sue Bird is? Maybe not take over where Sue Bird is. Maybe you slide Piff there. Maybe you bring in another veteran. I was going to hope for Kelsey Plum this offseason.
I don't think she's going anywhere. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Did she already?
Yeah, during the season last year. I was like, maybe it's Courtney Vandersloot. Maybe she comes to, I know she signed a 1-year deal with Chicago last offseason. Maybe that's like, okay, I'm going to come back to Chicago, wait for Sue to leave, and then we really don't know.
Yeah.
And we probably won't until we get into more kind of primer free agency here. So, but yes, I guess that's better to look over at draft here.
The Storm will have the number 9 overall selection in round 1 of the WNBA draft, and Seattle's projected to take guard JC Sheldon out of the Ohio State. God, I've always wanted to say it like that. She has a fun fearlessness in her drives to the basket and her opportunistic defense. Doing these things gets a lot harder in the WNBA, of course, but last season she averaged 19.7 points per game while shooting 50.4% from the field and recorded almost 2 steals per game. So you said you were looking at some stats last night.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. Just some of those numbers. I mean, 20 points per game, nearly
not bad.
50 from the field, tenacity on defense, but it's just tough with the WNBA and the roster spots, because it'll probably look different this year. I know Seattle's trying to get a lot of veterans on anyway. But what do we do here? So it'll be, again, this is I say this about a lot of off seasons for teams, because a lot of them are in key off seasons. The Sounders coming off of the CCL win, but missing playoffs. How do they rebuild? What do they look like? The Storm, they've only got a few people under contract. Sue Bird retired. Stewie is a free agent. You got Jewel for the next year. Where do you go from here? Where do you go? I'm kind of glad that we sit here behind the table and I'm not in the GM desk, because that's a lot of decisions. Seattle's been a powerhouse for years. The first few years of their existence, tough. And then they added a few teams. You're used to seeing the big three, or at least Sue. Back then, Sue and Lauren Jackson, Sue and Stewie, Sue and Jewel and Stewie.
I think I need the consistency of at least Stewie and Jewel.
Hoping so. Right?
Yeah.
Because now that it's not Sue, I mean, this is kind of just hand them the keys to the car. They already kind of had them, but so I give them the deed to the car at this point. I don't know.
Yeah. We'll move on to some league notes here. On the 11th, it was reported that, of course, the Indiana Fever will have the number 1 overall pick in the WNBA draft. And here is the first round order for the WNBA draft. Indiana Fever, Minnesota, Atlanta Dream, Washington Mystics, Chicago Sky, New York Liberty, Indiana Fever again, Atlanta Dream again, Seattle Storm with that number 9, Connecticut Sun, Dallas Wings, and once again the Minnesota Lynx.
Just interesting there to see Indiana, like they have to take Aaliyah Boston, but they've also got a pick there at 7. Atlanta's got 2 picks in that first round. Minnesota does as well. Those teams are, Minnesota, Sylvia Fowles retired. Someone that I wish got more shine with Sue in retirement, because Sylvia is an excellent legend of the game, and that's its own discussion. But you see some of these teams like Indiana, I'm sure in a few years they'll be really good too. They had high picks last year.
Right.
So it might be a situation where it's like we're going to slog through these few years.
They'll develop, and
I can only imagine. Yeah. So I don't know. Interesting to see that, but we've got our own team to worry about. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. I'm okay with 9. I don't know. We'll see. And then like a few off seasons ago, maybe they trade their first round pick. Yeah. Seattle was able to, they had the number 1 overall pick at one point, and they traded it, and that trade for Katie Lou Samuelson didn't end up working necessarily too much, because she ended up they didn't bring her back. But I don't know, interesting.
When do you foresee us getting more off-season moves here in a clearer picture?
January.
That's not too far.
I see it picking up then, yeah, because camp is more around May. So probably around that. We can get official league calendar here, and I'll look at that. But I think we go quiet for a little bit.
And that about wraps us up for the Storm.